what's going on, y'all? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And you're about to watch a little OTB LSU.
We're going to give you all the latest, greatest between LSU football, baseball, women's basketball, softball, and everything in between.
Bottom line, if you want to talk Tigers, keep it locked, subscribe, like it, and we hope you enjoy it. College football now enters a dead period. For the next month, no recruiting can take place. And what are we, 55 days away now from Las Vegas? We are getting close, boys. Officially under 2 months till LSU will square up with USC in Sin City to kick off the college football season. For a third year in a row, going to be on a Sunday on the lone stage, the largest stage, one that has, well, not been good for Brian Kelly the last couple of years. We didn't get into it last week. Do y'all agree or disagree if I tell you that the USC game is the biggest game in Brian Kelly's time at LSU thus far?
100%.
I'll play devil's advocate and say no, just because it's not a conference game. Solely that reason. You can lose that game, and we saw LSU lose an opener against Florida State and still make the SEC championship. Like, you can still do it. So I will say no. Do you want to do you want to win your opener? Of course, because you've lost 4 in a row. So, and you haven't looked good in any of them, by the way.
No, you've looked awful. And so, okay, I'm glad somebody did play devil's advocate, because I absolutely understand the point that it's not a conference game. But even in a playoff, even if you had a 12-team playoff, you would not have made it that year that you played in the SEC championship, because you lost the SEC and it gave you 4 losses.
4 losses.
Maybe you could make it at 9-3. Maybe if you played an SEC championship, you can make it at 9-3. So even then, like, I think this game takes on almost conference level importance, because you are now in a time where 10 regular season wins will get you into the playoff. And you can say, oh, well, T-Bob, what about the SEC championship? Like, that was an actual championship game. And I would just say that at that point, though, you were playing with house money, and everybody knew you weren't going to beat that Georgia team.
Winning.
That Georgia team was unstoppable. You were overachieving at that point in the season.
I guess I just look at it and I say you could lose that USC game and still get to 10 wins, though. I mean, we were just talking in the other segment about Ole Miss. That's going to be a tough game for the Rebels to come into Baton Rouge. Probably going to be a night game, potentially, there. So, I mean, you steal one of those. You split Bama and Ole Miss.
You would have to 3-1. You'd have to 3-1 the games that Jake was talking about.
That's my thing. Like, you have so much more margin for error if you win this game. Because what did we see? They've been behind the 8 ball 4 years in a row. You win this game, you can drop 2 SEC games, no problem. Because I think everybody's pretty much in agreement that 10 wins regular season should get you into that college football playoff. So, I mean, you like you said, you can go 3-1, you can go 2-2, which, I mean, seems, that seems more than doable if you win that USC game.
Jake, where do you rank this on importance in the Brian Kelly era?
I mean, I think it's up there towards the top, if not the top, just because of the way that the season openers have gone for you. And I agree with Taylor, like, you win this one, then it allows you to maybe drop 2 SEC games and still have a chance at the college football playoff. And I would say there's a couple of programs. I would say the Florida and Miami matchup, like, the coach in that game has maybe the most pressure. Whoever loses that game's in a heap of trouble.
Yeah.
So I would say that one, maybe Dabo and Clemson, even though no one expects them to beat Georgia, like, they've got to go out there and at least put up a fight, or the Clemson conversation kind of changes, even with Dabo's, like, most loyal fans. But I would say, like, BK and Lincoln Riley right there with them, because for Lincoln Riley, I mean, you're going to a new conference and you want to show that you can play with the big boys. And there was a report that you tried to get out of this game. And so there's a lot. You changed your defensive staff just like LSU did. So there's a lot surrounding that game for them. But also, like, for Brian Kelly, like, you have not come out of camp ready to go. And that is something that I'm sure they talk about often over there. And they make all these changes to bring in all these different coaches so that doesn't happen again.
It is fascinating, the narrative parallels between LSU and USC that you're touching on there, Jake. I mean, certainly in terms of on the field, right? Both losing Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks, both teams having to overcome really putrid defenses last season. And in fact, never forget, USC was actually a better defense statistically. That's how bad you were at LSU. Both teams, I think, with good hires in terms of trying to fix it. I love D'Anton Lynn from coming over from UCLA. UCLA made a lot of their hay last year on the defensive side of the ball. And so I think it should be able to pay dividends there. It's kind of funny, right? Both teams going in for an in-conference rivals defensive coordinator to come fix their problems. And like Jake said, both teams need it. Year 3 of Lincoln Riley and Brian Kelly at their respective positions. And remember, these two were kind of, through no fault of their own, they're kind of been linked since the beginning of this thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the Lincoln Riley LSU rumors were out of control, and it ended up being one of the most well-played smoke screens, misdirects that we've ever quite seen, and it worked out for both parties. Both used each other, right? Remember, Lincoln used LSU to be like, I am not going to be the next head coach at LSU. He didn't say he wasn't going to be the next head coach somewhere else. And LSU used Lincoln Riley to basically obfuscate the entire pursuit of Brian Kelly and snagging him away from Notre Dame. And so now here we sit 3 years later, and it's okay, who has done the better job? Who's better? And at first, maybe you'd have given a slight edge to USC, though that feels like they both had very good year ones. But to be clear, Brian Kelly, even with the Florida State foibles, Brian Kelly, an objectively better year 2. Not even close to what Lincoln Riley did. And so for Riley, even though I think they're kind of the same on the line for both of them in terms of their reputation and how we think about them. But for Riley especially, this feels like a bit of a breaking point this entire year, where he has to prove that last year was the exception, not the rule, and that everything that all these Oklahoma fans talk about him with, like, you know, the culture was falling apart and he's not actually a good coach, just that and the other. Like, he has to prove that is not true, and much of that is going to be on the line week 1 in Las Vegas. So an incredibly important matchup for two $10 million a year coaches trying to justify those salaries.
And USC pushed all their chips to the middle of the table to go get him.
Yeah.
I mean, think about what they pay him. I mean, they bought his house in Norman. They bought him another house in L.A. I mean, there was a lot there to get him from Norman, where they were in the college football playoff every year. Now, they didn't win anything, but they were there. They had a seat at the table. And they did whatever they could in a move that we didn't really think USC was capable of. At least I didn't anymore. I didn't think they'd do that. I just didn't think that they would go get a coach, care enough, not even have the resources, but want to use those resources to go do something like that. But they did. I mean, they made a hire that I didn't think that they were, capable of anymore, and they did. And it was a good year 1, but you still lost to Tulane in a Cotton Bowl. And in year 2, it fell apart.
It was great. Everything has gone wrong since the Pac-12 championship.
Yeah.
Going into that night against Utah, you were 10-1. You looked awesome, or maybe 11-1, right? Because it was a Pac-12 championship.
I think you'd only lost to Utah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you looked awesome. The world was your oyster, and then you lose to Utah. You lose to Tulane, and then just nothing's gone right since. It's crazy.
And like you said, LSU-USC, they offensively have been really good. Defensively, not as much. And for Lincoln Riley to get rid of his boy, Alex Grinch, like, he knows.
Yeah.
He knows that, like, man, my contract, I'm probably not, in real danger getting fired, but I better do something here quick or I'm going to lose everybody.
Where did Alex Grinch is, the co-DC at Wisconsin now? Bro, what? Is this like real life office space? Does he just he just fails upward? That doesn't make any sense, dude. Wow, Jake, what incredible takes.
I mean, those guys, they're just the best.
I think so. And if you think so, again, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications when we post every single day here on OTB LSU.